How many of you can look back on your life and you can identify times in your life where if you had made a different decision, your life would be drastically different? It might have been in a very small thing, but you can see, had I done this, my life would look this way. Had I not done that, my life would look this way. I know that we all can do that. This week I was listening to a podcast by a man named Brendan Burchard. He's a high performance coach. He's in the personal development realm. He's someone I've started listening to quite a bit. Really appreciate him. And he was speaking on this topic, and I really liked the ideas he brought out. So I wanted to share them with you, but I also wanted to give him the credit of uh, his message on this was the inspiration for this. So let's talk about it. So I think we're all familiar with the time travel movie trope of somebody going back in time and changing something that changes their future or where they're currently at. You know, movies like Back to the Future, Terminator, The Butterfly Effect, all of them have this idea of what if we could go back in time and change one thing, maybe it's something small, and what would it do in the present? Now some of them get very philosophical about it, of is it right to go back and change the past so that your future can be changed? Would it be right to go back and stop Hitler before became Hitler? Would it be right to go back and stop a person from committing a crime? And some of these have this philosophical idea of, yes, we would, if that was possible, we'd be morally obligated to do it. Where others say, well, but at least what happened is known, and if we change something, we might make things worse. You know, there's so many movies like this that we're all familiar with. Well, why are movies like this so popular? I think the reason they're so popular is for the simple fact that all of us have had this experience of looking back in life and thinking either, man, I'm so glad I did that. Had I not done that, it would have been disastrous. But we also have, also many of us can look back with regret and saying, I wish I had changed that. I wish I had done this thing. You know, for me, obviously, my biggest one that I can think of is how I met my wife. Back in the year 2000, I was in Bible college. It was our first semester of Bible college. And after that first semester, we had the opportunity that we could stay and live in the dorms over the summer, or we could all kind of go back home. And I weighed that decision, and you know, obviously, I missed my family. Obviously, um, going back home would have felt more familiar. And to be honest with you, I didn't have a great first semester of Bible college. I really didn't make any friends, and that was nobody's fault but my own. I was very introverted back then. I did not attempt to make many friends. In fact, most of my first semester of Bible college, I would simply go to class and then I would go back to my dorm room and I would listen to sermons or something like that. Um, I didn't get a job until right toward the end of the semester, so I struggled financially. My first semester wasn't great, but I made the decision that I was going to stay there over summer. A few days after I made the decision, you know, those that were going back, they had left. We had the opportunity, we had to get new roommates for the summer. We kind of consolidated down those people who were staying, and one day there was a knock at my door, and this student came in. I had seen him before, but I had never spoke to him, never talked to him. And he just said, I heard you're one of the people staying for summer. And I said, yeah. And he goes, how would you like to be my roommate? I said, sure, why not? That was the only conversation I had with him. A week or two later, I was sitting out on the front porch of the dorms, and my new roommate rolled up in a car with some other students in the car, you know, some both guys and girls. And they said, hey, do you want to hang out? Now, to be honest, being an introvert, I didn't want to hang out. That was not my thing. Really, sitting on the front porch was a big step for me because I would much rather be in my room. But then I also made this decision, sure, why not? Why not do that? Well, one of the girls in that car turned out to be my wife. And I look back on that and I think to myself, what would my life have been like had I not made the decision to stay over the summer? I didn't really have a good reason to stay over the summer. It just seemed like the right thing to do. Or what if I had not been sitting on the porch during that time? What if I had not agreed to go hang out with him at that time? So I can look back and I can say that small decision made a huge change in my life. Now, looking back, I am so grateful and thankful that I don't have a lot of huge regrets. I I have lived a very blessed life, and there's no tragedies in my life that I can look back on and be like, man, I wish I could go back and change that. But some people do. Some people have very big tragedies. Some people might look back and say, I wish I hadn't got behind that wheel when I was drunk, or I wish I had not said those things to that person who could have been my spouse or maybe was my spouse. I wish I would have treated them right. So we all have things we look back on and are thankful we did, and there's things that we look back on and we wish we had done better. And that's why these movies that we and all these types of stories, whether they're books as well, are they speak to the human condition of we all have these things. So why am I talking about this? Well, this is what Brendan Burchard brought out in his podcast. If we all have things in our past that we can look to and say, if we had done this different, or if we had made this decision, our life would be drastically different today. Then today, there are probably things in your life that if you would do today, if you'd make that decision today, your future life would be drastically different. And I really liked that thought and that idea that we've all have them, and we can go through every stage of our life. There's every time in our life in our past we could probably identify, if we took enough time, the things we could have done different to help us today. And what I'm saying and what Brendan was bringing out is there's things you can do today that will help your future self. So that might be interesting, and it is very interesting thought, but how does that help us today? We all know hindsight's 2020, and it's easy to look back on your life and say, had I done this different, my life would be drastically different. But it's not as easy to be able to say, I can know right now the thing I can do that will make my future drastically different. Nobody knows the future. We can't predict the future. However, what we can do is we can be intentional uh, to learn new things and to gain new knowledge. We can be intentional about stepping out of our comfort zone and seeking adventure and meeting new people and doing all these things that I've been sharing with you on this More Intentional Live channel. We could all take more calculated risks. An example for me, one of the regrets I have is back in 2008, I think it was. Um, we're in our late 20s. I'm married. My wife and I, we both have good jobs. And I started thinking about and looking at my financial future. And I began to think about, you know what, I really should be investing in things. I invested some, I bought some stocks. But how many know what was going on in 2008? Beginning of 2008 was the beginning of the big recession, right? And I lost a lot of the money that I had invested. Now, thankfully, I didn't invest all our money. Thankfully, when as it began to drop, I exited out of those positions. But not having the knowledge and not taking time to get more knowledge, I basically stepped back from investing for over 10 years. I really just recently got more into it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that a part of living the intentional life is looking for these opportunities that if you take them, they will likely lead to your success. You can't know for sure. You don't know the future. But is there something you can do today that is likely to lead to more success in the future? One of them is learning. Learning anything is always more likely to lead you into success in the future, even if the thing you learned is what not to do. And so as we live this more intentional life, I really liked what Brendan, the idea that Brendan brought out in his message of today, just like last year or the year before that, just like in your past, there were things that you could have done to drastically change your today. There are things today that you could do that could drastically affect your future and help your future self. And it's all part of being intentional to look for those opportunities. As you live the intentional life, these opportunities will come up. Have the courage to grab hold of them. But if this blessed you, would you share it with somebody else? Would you consider liking this channel or even subscribing so that others can hear more about it? But until I see you again, go out and live the more intentional life.